What is up, Compass North Fort Worth? All right, well, I thought maybe I was preaching to an empty room again. Hey, we're so glad you're here. Welcome. Our mission is navigating people to God. I want to welcome those of you who are worshiping online too. Hey, those of you in the room right now, what I need you to do, I need you to be as loud as you can. Let those online know that you're here. There we go. Man, I'm so glad that you're joining us wherever that might be from. If you're worshiping online, drop in the comment section right now. Let us know where you're worshiping from. If you're a guest, an extra special welcome to you, whether that's here in the room or online. As Anthony said, we want to give you a gift. And so you can text the word Connect NFW to 94000, and we're going to send you that gift card, or you can stop by Next Steps on the way out. I'd love to meet you. And we just want you to know we're glad that you're here. As Anthony said, tomorrow at our property, it is a groundbreaking ceremony, and I can't wait for that, right? And some chair thieves are not going to stop us. Some people trying to take a tent are not going to stop us from celebrating what God has already done, but what is still yet to come. And I am so excited. Man, I can't wait for you to get out there. If you've driven past the property, you know there's a lot of work that's already happened, and I'm going to be able to kind of show you exactly where the building will be too. So it's really cool that we can actually stand in the building tomorrow night. And so I hope you'll join us for that. Plus, we got Texas Ice Cream Truck going to be there, so if nothing else, come for some free ice cream, all right? A few years ago, I was invited to be a part of a cohort of pastors from across the country, and the first one of these meetings actually took place in the city of Las Vegas. Actually, I don't know if you know this or not, there's a large church there that's one of the largest churches in America. And if you've ever been to Las Vegas, you know it's a really eclectic city. There's street entertainers everywhere. There's people that are handing out pamphlets and there are coupons. And then there's other things that I would never recommend that you ever grab when someone hands you something in Las Vegas. Then there are also those who stand on the street corners who are street preachers, and they talk about and they yell at people as they walk past that because of being in Sin City and the things that they're doing there, that they're going to go to a place that's hotter than the 120 degrees in Las Vegas. And I read about a guy who is a regular on the old Vegas Strip right off of Fremont Avenue. And he stands down there and he holds up this sign, and on the sign are these letters, WWJD. Now, you may think that what that represents is the bracelet that was popular many years ago. Maybe some of you still wear it today, but it just said those words, what would Jesus do? Maybe that's what you think that sign says, but as this guy stands on the street corner with those letters, WWJD, right underneath it, there's actually a question that he asks, and the question is not what would Jesus do, it's who would Jesus destroy? And then right below that is a list of all these different people, liars and cheats and gossips and the lust-filled, and the list even gets more scandalous than that. This guy literally stands on the street corner and he yells at the people passing by that they are going to hell because of their choices, that Jesus is going to destroy them because of these things. And you know, as I thought about this guy and I heard this story, honestly, my heart broke because I realized that maybe this is the opinion that a lot of people have of the church. That when they think about the church, this is the view that they have, that maybe we're kind of like the guy who stands on the corner with the sign that says, who would Jesus destroy? Maybe for some of you, you've even experienced this as well, where you haven't felt very welcomed into the church, and for you, it feels as though the church is more about what it's against rather than what it's for. But maybe for some of you, that has been your experience with the church, whether that's here in person or online, or maybe it's not the experience that you had, but it's the experience that someone else you know has had. Maybe someone you've tried to invite to be a part of what's happening here. You know, in my own family, my own two sisters have been turned off by the church. That they've kind of been disenfranchised by the church because they feel as though the church has done a really good job of talking about all that it's against, but not really doing a good job of talking about all that it's for. And actually, as I was preparing this message, I texted my sisters. I said, hey, would you be willing to share with me kind of why you don't like going to church anymore, why you have something against the church? And they both responded back, and they said, absolutely, we'd be willing to share. I was like, if you share that with me, is it okay if I share with our congregation what you write? And they both said, that's okay. And as I read the words that my sisters responded, my heart broke. In fact, I read one of my sister's words, and I was so broken by it that I wanted to share them with you today. This is what my one sister said. The feeling of being an outcast is most certainly where I fall on this list. On being unwanted, I think it's pretty easy to tell that I'm different, but to have no clinical diagnosis, I can't say that the mental health issues that I carry around with me. But I think it has always cast me as this outsider, well, everywhere. But I have felt the church was lacking compassion and understanding on that front. Far too often, it seems like it shouldn't be a place that would be that way. I don't feel the need to fit in per se, but I'd like to at least not feel like I shouldn't even be there. And then there's the judging and the shaming of people for their actions. I think sometimes we're all afraid to reconcile our own shortcomings so we can just point fingers and tell people what they're doing is bad. And I'll be honest, as I read those words of my sister, as their brother who's a pastor of a church, this saddened me so much because I know that my sisters are not the only ones that feel that way. I know that maybe even some of you, whether that's here in the room or online, I know that's maybe the way that you feel. That the only reason that some of you maybe even are tuning in or in person is because someone invited you and you just wanted to come and you wanted to see if it's true what you've heard about every church or every church that you've experienced, if it's true at Compass North Fort Worth as well. And if that's you, I get it. But here's my hope for all of us today. For those who are skeptics of the church, I hope to show you that there is a different way. That there is a better way, that we are trying to be better than maybe the perception that a lot of people have of the church here at Compass, and we are trying our best to change this narrative that maybe you've been led to believe, or maybe it's really your perception because of the way that someone who called themselves a Christian acted towards you. And my hope is over these next couple weeks, really to help us all understand who and what we are for. Because I believe that we have this great opportunity as the church to make a difference in this current season that we're in. You know, just like I asked my sisters that question of why they were turned off by the church, I think any of us, we could probably go just downtown Fort Worth. We could walk around Sundance Square where everyone's kind of hanging out, and we could ask this very same thing, and you know what we would hear? I think we'd hear a lot of the reasons of what the church is against rather than what we are for. Because, unfortunately, this is what the church has been known for. But I was thinking about this. I was like, what if we flip the script, right? Like what if instead of asking that question, we ask this question instead? Who is the church for? That question might be a little bit harder for those very same people to ask. But that's what I want to show you today and where we're going to go in these next 2 weeks of this series. Now, back to this question, though, before we get there. This question, who is the church for? I think that historically, some people have thought that the church is for those who are powerful, that are in power, or that it's for the rich because they're the ones who can sustain, they're the ones who can take care of things, that's what it's for, or that some people think that the church is for people who are good, like they've got their act together, they follow the rules and they do things a certain way. I mean, some people would call those like maybe the holier than thou folks. I think that sometimes this is where people tend to land on this, right? But here's the question. What about everybody else? Like I'm talking about the people who once had power, the people who once had wealth, the people who once had it all together, but life has come crashing down. What about those who aren't as good as they seem? Those who've been told they have to act a certain way in order for God to love them? What about everyone else? And when I thought about that, I thought to myself, you know what? We are the everyone else, aren't we? This is all of our stories, because if you really think about it, none of us is actually good enough. We all make mistakes. We all mess up. We all lie. We gossip. We cheat. We do these things. So knowing all that, what do we do with this? I think what it means is we have to ask a different question. Before we can answer who the church is for, we first need to answer this. Who is God for? Who does God care about? And some of you, you might actually be surprised by the end of today, what comes out of my mouth and what I share with you. You might actually be surprised by this because maybe you've been led to believe something different by the church or those who call themselves Christians. Maybe it's in the way they acted or in the way they responded to you. Now, if you've got a Bible or a Bible app, what I want you to do, I want you to turn with me to the book of Romans. We're going to be in Romans chapter 8 today. It's in Romans chapter 8 that Paul, who is the writer of this book, he's actually writing to these early Christians who are living in Rome. And as he writes to them, he writes these words of encouragement. And what Paul says in Romans chapter 8 is really the truth of the gospel that we've got to understand. And so before we go any further, I want you to hear this, all right? And if you take nothing else away from this message, this is what I hope that you hear. What I hope that you hear is this. The gospel isn't about who God is against. It's about who God is for. And Paul does a great job here, I think, of helping us to understand that here in Romans chapter 8. By really looking at who God is for, I think can really help all of us understand who and what the church is for. Because I believe when we truly grasp who God is for, then we'll really be able to understand who the church is for, how do we show that to other people, rather than just this continued perception that people have that the church is against everything. And I don't know about you, but I think this is essential. I actually think this is pretty critical in the season, in the climate that we are in. I mean, the last 5 months have been absolutely crazy. If you just turn on the news, it's pretty sad, or you just scroll through social media, a lot of it looks like Christians fighting against one another. And I think we can change that. I mean, I think we have a chance to really unify in this season as a church, and we can impact our communities, we can impact our cities, we can impact our state, we can impact our country. I think we can impact the world. And this is what Paul was trying to do here in Romans chapter 8. And that's what we're going to see. Because as you look at Paul's words, actually what you find is I believe this was Paul's rallying cry. Because just like many of you have been dealing with some hardship, you've been dealing with some difficulties in your life, this was something that was happening in the first century as well. Now, here's the thing. In the first century, the mindset was this, that if you were successful, if you were healthy, if you were wealthy, if things were going good for you, then you were on the good side of God. But if you weren't healthy, if you weren't successful, if you weren't wealthy, then the opposite was thought, that you were on the wrong side of God. And Paul knew this, so he sets out to address this here in Romans chapter 8. And we're going to start by looking at what he says here in verse 28, because I think this really helps to set things up. This is what he says. He says, "And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them." Now, what is Paul saying here? He says, look, everything that has happened to you, he says, good or bad, you have to understand that all things, if you trust God, if you follow God with your life, he says that no matter what has happened in your past, no matter what is happening right now in their presence, he says, if you trust God, know the suffering and the difficulties that you're going through, God has a purpose for you. I like how Warren Wiersbe says this. He says this, "The believer never need faint in times of suffering and trial because he knows that God is at work in the world and that he has a perfect plan. God has two purposes in that plan, our good and his glory." I love that. This is what Paul is really trying to drive home here for all of us. That God is for you, that he is for me, and his plan for you, his plan for me, listen, hear this, it is good. And then notice what Paul goes on to say next, verses 31 to 34. He says, "What shall we say about such wonderful things as these?" Now, I want to stop here for a minute. What's Paul talking about? Wonderful things. Do you understand what Paul's talking about? He's like, the suffering and the hardships that you're facing, you have to consider those things as wonderful. Now, that may not make sense to some of you. But Paul goes on to say this next. He says, "If God is for us, who can ever be against us? Since he did not spare even his own son, but gave him up for all of us. Won't he also give up everything else? Who dares accuse us whom God has chosen for his own? No, for God himself has given us right standing with himself. Who then will condemn us? No one, for Christ Jesus died for us and was raised to life for us, and he is sitting in the place of honor at God's right hand, pleading for us. Here's what Paul's getting at. What Paul is saying here is this, that God is for you and God is for me. And I love this word for. Paul uses it over and over again. And you have to understand this word for, what Paul is saying here is that this word for literally means in favor of. And this is so important to understand. Like what are you for? Like I could ask you that question and you could probably tell me a whole bunch of things you're for, right? Like one thing I am for the fact that we are back in person in gathering in church. Like I'm so excited about that. I'll tell you what else I'm for. I'm for Luka Doncic, right? And the Mavs, right? I'm for In-N-Out over Whataburger. I know that's not, I know that doesn't go very far here in Texas, right? I am for Krispy Kreme donuts, especially when the light's on, right? And when you think about it, we are in favor of certain things. And we have to understand this word for. What Paul is saying here is that God is for everyone, that Jesus is for all people, and he showed that by sending his son to die on the cross for all of our mistakes. And you know, sometimes people, they tried to downplay this, and they'll be like, Pastor Nate, I hear what you're saying, but I don't believe that. I don't think God's for me. Like what I'm going through right now, and maybe some of you who are watching online, you're like, I don't believe that, I don't buy that. I hear people say that and they go, that's kind of the prosperity God, right? Pastor Nate, like, I don't believe that God is for me. But understand this, Paul, who is writing this, if there's anyone who could have gone the other way, Paul was a guy who wanted nothing to do with Christianity, but he turns his life around. God turns his life around, and Paul is a direct, matter-of-fact kind of guy. He never sugarcoats anything. Like, Paul is a guy saying this, he means it. And when Paul says God is for you, you have to believe that God is for you. I love what he says here in verse 34. He says, Jesus died for us. There's that word again. And he was raised to life for us. What is he saying? He says, God is in favor of you. He is in favor of me. And it doesn't matter what you've done in your past. God loves you. God is for the sinner. God is for the person who doesn't have it all together. God is for the person who intentionally or unintentionally made some poor choices or bad decisions in their life. And what Paul is doing here, he's debunking this myth that God was only for a select group of people. What Paul's doing is helping us to understand that God is for everyone. Jesus is for all people. Now, you know that guy that I talked about in Las Vegas who stood on the corner and he held that sign with those words, WWJD, said, who would Jesus destroy? Well, I know a guy who is a pastor in Las Vegas that he and his church, they heard about this guy and they decided to do something different. And so they went down to that street corner and they decided to share a different message. You know what they did? They actually created these flyers, and on these flyers, they put these initials instead, WDJL. And WDJL, actually, the question that they put under it was this: who does Jesus love? And then what they did is they copied the same list of people that this other guy had on his sign. They put that list underneath, who does Jesus love? And then what they did is they stood right next to this guy on the street corner who was yelling and screaming, but they didn't say anything. They actually just put duct tape over their mouths, and they had these brochures, and they just handed them out to the people as they passed by to share a different message. And this is what was on those flyers. It said this: it's very common to find street preachers here on Fremont Street loudly declaring who God hates. There's a problem with that, and it's that God loves. The Bible says that God is love and that he sent Jesus not to condemn, but because of and in love. The truth is that God loves homosexuals and gamblers and strippers and abortionists and prostitutes and addicts and you. And so we apologize for anything you've ever heard that would lead you to believe otherwise. The reason they spread a message of that is because there is power in hate. But we have chosen the way of Jesus, the way of love, and we find it far more powerful. We've taped our mouths shut as a symbolic way of offsetting the verbal abuse you may have heard in the past and may hear tonight. And that is so powerful when you think about it. This is what Paul was getting at here. Despite your past, despite your mistakes, despite the choices that you've made that you go, man, I wish that I could take that back, but I can't. It's too late for me. Know that God is a God of love, and he says, look, I can forgive you of those things. All you got to do is turn around to me. That you have to understand that God is for you, that God is for all of us, that Jesus didn't come to judge sinners. He came to forgive sinners. God is for you. And then Paul drives this home here in verses 35 to 39. Listen to these words. He says this, can anything ever separate us from Christ's love? Does it mean that he no longer loves us if we have trouble or calamity or are persecuted or hungry or destitute or in danger or threatened with death? The scriptures say, for your sake, we are killed every day. We are being slaughtered like sheep. No, this is key. Despite all these things, overwhelming victory is ours through Christ who loved us. And I'm convinced that nothing can ever separate us from God's love. Neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither our fears for today nor our worries about tomorrow, not even the powers of hell can separate us from God's love. No power in the sky above or the earth below, indeed nothing in all creation will ever be able to separate us from the love of God that is revealed in Christ Jesus our Lord. You know, the thing that Paul is getting at here that I'm not sure the church has always been great at portraying or even conveying is this. There is nothing that you've ever done. Hear me on this. There's nothing that you've ever done that will ever make God stop loving you. Unfortunately, I'm afraid this isn't the message that always people hear or they have been led to believe about the church or they've even been led to believe about God. I believe there are many of you who maybe, whether you're online or in person, you've been led to believe that you're disqualified because of your choices. I believe there are some people you know who feel like it's too late for them, that the choices that they made in their past, there's no way that God could forgive them. And that there's no way that they could accept Jesus and they could make that decision that is the most important decision to be baptized and follow him with their life because God will never forgive them those things. But here's the reality. If God is for us, then why would the church not magnify and exemplify this very same message? That's why we're talking about this over these 2 weeks. Because I believe our job as a church, as the called out ones, the followers of Christ, this is what we do. And we have to change this mindset that people have at the church. And this happens when we start showing others who and what we are for rather than what we're against. So next week, we're going to dig into this more. How do we do this? Like, what does this look like? I want to give you some practical ways that we can show people that we are for them. Because here at Compass, we want to show them that we are for North Fort Worth, that we are for Decatur, and that we are for Watauga, and that we are for Rome, and that we are for Keller, and that we are for Roanoke, and we are for the whole DFW area. That's what we want to show here at Compass. And you see, my hope is that these couple of messages, they won't just be like, you hear them and go, you know what, Pastor Nate, that's so good. I love the slogan. Man, thanks for the free t-shirt. I'm so glad that I got one. And I know that we're for our communities and that's all you do. My prayer is that this would spur us to action, especially now, because I believe we've got this incredible opportunity to spread the love of Christ in a very tangible way. And you know, I don't know if you've seen this. If you're not on social media, you may not. But over the last 5 months, you know, COVID has given us some incredible opportunities to be the hands and feet of Jesus in our community. And I think we would have done this even if COVID didn't happen, but it's just opened up some new doors for us, and it's just been really cool to see. And even this week, we had a great opportunity, and I was so excited that our team, we got to go over to Saginaw Elementary School. And we were able to bless the school there and the students there with school supplies for the year. The whole school, right? Yeah. And you know what was the coolest thing? The teachers were literally like crying because we brought boxes of tissues because they said, we're going to run out of tissues before October, right? And so they were so grateful for tissues. And I thought to myself, man, what if we didn't just help Saginaw Elementary School? What if we What if we as the church just started bringing boxes of tissues and we could bless every one of the schools in the Northwest ISD, in the Eagle Mountain Saginaw School District, and our surrounding areas? What if we could just show them in a simple way that we were for them? I think that's pretty easy, isn't it? Or 2 weeks ago, I had this incredible opportunity with our outreach team. We got to go, Anthony and I, we met some of our outreach team here at our campus and across our campuses, and we went over to the North Fort Worth Police Department, and we delivered a pallet of water to the police officers there, and it was really cool. They were helping us unload it, and then afterwards, we were in the building with them, and Anthony prayed for them, and we just let them know that we were for them, that we were with them. And that's what we've been able to show as we've been going through this season, but it shouldn't just stop, right? Like, we've got to continue to find these opportunities and these ways to do this. You know, when my family and we moved from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to Fort Worth, Texas, one of the reasons that we decided to come to Compass is because of this mission statement that we have here at Compass that we just absolutely love: navigating people to God. And you know, this is what the church is always supposed to be about. That Jesus said, go and tell other people about me. Show God's love to other people. That's what he commanded the early church to do. And that's what we are called to do as well. And so I want you to hear this. When we say those words, navigating people to God, what we are saying is this: we are for navigating people to God, and we are going to point people to Jesus because that's who Jesus was for. He was for people like you and me. And our mission has to be to point others to him. You know, 54 years ago, 11 families decided in the Bedford area to start a church there because they wanted to show their community that they were for them and that God was for them. And for the last 54 years, that little church that started with 11 families has been doing that very thing here in the DFW area. We now know it as Compass Christian Church. But what I love is that Compass decided a whole long time ago that we weren't going to be satisfied with just being Compass Christian Church in Colleyville. No, they decided we're going to start a campus in Roanoke. And then a couple of years ago, they decided, no, we're going to launch a campus in either North Richland Hills or North Fort Worth. And then they got this even better idea. Hey, we should do both of them. And they just continue to have this idea that we're going to do whatever it takes to navigate people to God because there are more and more people that are moving into this area, and we've got to reach them. And as I thought about that, I thought, man, Compass, North Fort Worth, guess what? We're a part of this story, right? Like we're standing on the heritage of those 11 families 54 years ago who said, we've got to navigate people to God in the in the DFW area. And we're just a small part of that story. We've only been around for 2.5 years, but we've seen God moving and working in some incredible ways. Like God's favor has been on our campus. I really believe that. And he has been working and it's been impacting people. We've seen over 100 people make decisions to accept Christ and be baptized. I'm going to do a baptism tomorrow at 2:30 at somebody's swimming pool. Somebody who's decided to make that decision. We see life change happening. And here's the thing, we're just getting started. In fact, this weekend we're celebrating, right? I mean, we've already seen construction begin on our permanent location, and what I've seen in the midst of this pandemic is that a virus was not going to stop the church from doing what the church has already done, that the virus could not keep us. Yeah, we celebrate that. No virus was going to keep us from showing God's love to other people. I think what it's done is it's only served to help us find new opportunities and new ways to continue to navigate people to God and show them that we are for them. And this was my prayer before we ever launched this campus, and it continues to be my prayer. My prayer has always been that we would be a place where people find love and acceptance, where they never feel outcast or unwanted. My prayer has been and will continue to be that this will be a place where people know that they don't have to leave their baggage at the door, that they can bring their baggage in, that this will be a place, my prayer has always been that people will feel loved just the way that they are, that they don't have to change anything about themselves to walk through these doors. And my prayer is, and especially for those of you online, if you've never joined us, my prayer is that you would know it's okay not to be okay. But God doesn't want you to stay that way. And people would know that. If you're in the room, I hope you know that too. And you would know that because we show God's love to you and your lives are transformed forever. And look, I get some of you, you've been burned by the church in your past. I get some of you, you don't have a good impression of the church, that honestly, I'm not sure if you believe all this, right? Let me just challenge you with this, if that's you. Keep coming, keep tuning in, keep listening, keep experiencing what you're experiencing here at Compass North Fort Worth, because I believe you're a part of this. And as you're a part of this, you'll see that we are for North Fort Worth, that we are for you, and we want to change the narrative that maybe you've been led to believe about the church. You know, one of the things as we were designing our permanent location that I wanted to make sure that we did was we made sure that our community would know that we were for them, that we care about them and that we love them, and then we want to show them that. And that's why we're going to have a fully functioning, operating, 7 days a week coffee shop that people can come in, they can have a meeting, they can hang out in the lobby, they can work there, they can grab really good coffee, and they're going to be like, man, this is at a church? Are you kidding me? It's why we wanted to have an indoor playground so families could come, because let's be honest, like nobody is playing outside when it's 110 degrees, but if there's an air-conditioned playground, man, that place is going to be filled, and there's going to be birthday parties that happen there, and then people are going to come, and they're going to go, man, I want to be a part of that. This church, why would they do this? Why would they open this up? And the reason is because we want to show people that we are for North Fort Worth, that we are for their families, we are for their kids, that we are for everyone, and Compass North Fort Worth. I believe if we get this, and we really get it, we just go, hey, that's a cute slogan, thanks for the t-shirt. No, we get it, and we show our community that we are for them. What will happen is that the sky is the limit, and our future will be so bright. So let me encourage you with this. Let's be people known for who and what we are for. I want to encourage you, share this message with somebody this week, like somebody you know who's been disenfranchised with the church. Share this message with them. Say, hey, I want you to hear what our church is all about. I want you to know that we are for you. Can you imagine what would happen if we would just do that and be for our community? Man, I'm so excited. So excited to be back in person with those of you who are here. Those of you watching online, whenever you're ready, we want you to know we're ready. We're so glad that you're here. Would you pray with me as we close? Father, I thank you so much that you show that you were for us by sending your son to take away our mistakes. God, help those who have maybe had a bad experience with the church, with those who call themselves followers of Christ, to see that you love them, and help us as the church to be a light to them. God, thank you that you are for us. We pray all this in your name. Amen.